The working partnership between director Martin Scorsese and actor Robert De Niro, spanning more than 40 years, is often touted as one of the very best in Hollywood history. The two grew up around the same neighbourhood and were formally introduced to each other by director Brian DePalma, which kickstarted a brilliant string of collaborations which involve just as many interesting stories behind the camera as it does in front of it. Many of the films Scorsese and De Niro made together are considered some of the best films ever made, and De Niro has been nominated for 3 Oscars under Scorsese, including 1 win. In anticipation of their 10th feature-length film together, Killers of the Flower Moon, here are my rankings of De Niro's performances in Scorsese's films. I thought this was going to be a really easy job, because it's just 9 movies, but it proved to be really difficult, because I guess De Niro is just such a damn fine actor and is pretty much great in almost everything he's in. Anyway, at number 9, my pick is New York, New York. It can't be a coincidence that this is also the worst Scorsese De Niro film. A muddled, part gritty relationship drama and part classic Hollywood-era musical love letter, more famous for Scorsese being coked up out of his mind behind the scenes, and the actors improvising so much that it was almost impossible to string together a coherent film in editing. Though it might be a rare Scorsese misfire, the film isn't that bad, more mediocre, and it does have its moments. When you think of De Niro, you think of intense, hard-boiled characters, murderous gangsters and such. It's a bit bewildering then to see Scorsese and De Niro follow up the disturbing taxi driver with a role for De Niro as an out-of-control, petty and narcissistic jazz saxophonist. He looks a bit lost here, like he doesn't really know what he's doing. A shame too, because De Niro actually learned to play the saxophone for his role. Maybe there's a strong performance hiding in this disconnected film, which was cut down from apparently a 4-hour-long runtime. The real problem is that all the major players of New York, New York are on different wavelengths. Liza Minnelli and De Niro seem like they both approached the movie with performances thinking they'd be in a particular kind of film, only to find the movie didn't possess the tone either of them would have expected. In fact, what they found was a Scorsese out of his element and high as a kite. In a film that bombed so hard, the experience put Scorsese in hospital and close to dying. At number 8, it's Casino. One of my personal favourite Scorsese films. De Niro is brilliant at Sam Rothstein, perfectly manifesting the frustrations that come with trying to juggle the running of a casino with a volatile mobster as a best friend, an out-of-control former hooker as a wife, and legal problems piling up on his head. The reason why it's so low on the list is, perhaps similar to the film itself, we aren't really seeing De Niro do anything he hasn't done before. It's a good performance, but there's nothing new here. It's what I might describe as a professional appearance. Also, Ray Liotta once described his own performance in Goodfellas as the glue, and De Niro's and Pesci's as the glitter. There's a lot of wisdom behind this statement, and I think in general it can be easy to run away with a movie with a flashy performance as a supporting actor, which you could argue De Niro did in Goodfellas, but it's not something you can always do as the protagonist. I think it's an adequate way to describe De Niro's performance in Casino. He's the glue, and guys like Pesci and Sharon Stone are the glitter. They are the more colourful and wilder supporting characters whose actions drive the story, whilst De Niro himself is more or less a low-key man, just trying to keep on top of things and keep it together. At number 7, I've gone for the king of comedy. It pains me to have this performance so low that it's third to last, but I guess it's a testament to just how great of an actor De Niro is. There's a reason why Scorsese called the king of comedy De Niro's best performance in his films. At surface level, this is a magnificent performance at manifesting what the kids today call awkward cringe. It's such a cringy character. You feel so awkward sitting there watching the film, even if you're on your own. It's very uncomfortable, but at the same time very funny, and so left field from the kind of roles De Niro used to do at the time, on a completely different planet from what we had previously seen from him. It's also a very scary performance. In what was one of the primary inspirations for Todd Phillips' Joker film, De Niro's Rupert Pupkin is a narcissistic character who is at times pathetically tragic for how he lives in his own head, and he projects his unearned confidence out onto the real world. We can see how he comes off to others, but at the same time, due to a combination of De Niro's brilliance and Scorsese's master of the craft, we can also see how he comes across to himself from his own perspective. and as such it's an extremely layered and detailed performance. At number 6, Goodfellas. When people do De Niro, when they copy him or parody him or spoof him, they're usually doing him in Goodfellas. It's the quintessential De Niro performance. It's what everyone thinks of when you think of De Niro acting. The voice, the mannerisms, the accent, the expressions, the grimacing, the smile. All of these things which we think of as belonging to De Niro can be found in this film. De Niro is so smooth here. He oozes charm here from the moment he's on screen. He personifies the coolness that we associate with the gangster life. But as the film goes on, De Niro peels back the layers of his character to reveal the vicious psychopath hiding underneath, as best personified in the slow-mo shot of his character deciding to whack his entire crew, with the flicking of the eyebrow once the idea sparks in his brain, the chilling smile as he contemplates it, and then the stink eye, a look that is almost a death sentence in of itself. It's such a strong performance that you often forget that De Niro isn't really in this film that much, but it's a testament to his ability that he's so memorable in it. My next pick is Cape Fear. Cape Fear is the result, it seems, of when Scorsese and De Niro decide to go all out bonkers in what is bizarrely considered a commercial project for the 1990s, despite it following a serial rapist looking to punish his former attorney. It is such a wacky film and so over the top that sometimes it feels like a Looney Tunes sketch. And that's precisely what makes De Niro's performance so great. He absolutely nails it because his character matches the tone of the film to a T. Max Cady is such an OTT character, and yet De Niro never comes off as a caricature or too over the top that it becomes funny. He's always intense and he's always scary. Even his preparation was over the top. Working out so much, he reportedly took his body fat level to 3%, and he paid thousands of dollars to a dentist to have his teeth messed up, all for what is a villainous role in a relatively minor Scorsese film. I can't imagine the balls it must take, as a respected actor, to come up with such a wild performance which, if done wrong, could have been laughably bad. Not to mention the southern accent. For an actor often known for playing New York characters, to pull off such a strong accent with the authenticity and the confidence that he did it with is remarkable. At number 4, The Irishman. The Irishman contains one of De Niro's most demanding roles. At over 70 years of age, De Niro played his character Frank Sheeran during numerous stages of his life. From his 30s, 40s, 50s, and even as old as in his 80s, it's a multi-layered and nuanced performance, where he plays a stoic hitman who, as part of his job description, is supposed to suppress and hide his feelings. Much has been made about De Niro being miscast for the role, and aside from a few instances, namely the scene where he beats up the grocer, I disagree. In terms of the de-aging CGI used to make him look younger, that's not anything De Niro has any personal control over. What I feel people often miss is the fact that the real-life Frank Sheeran was a large, lumbering man who had numerous health conditions that made him a stiff individual. So in actual fact, De Niro's lack of boisterousness is part of the actor's performance. I also think that The Irishman contains some of De Niro's finest moments on screen, most of which are towards the end of the film. The entire sequence from Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night to when his character is told not to call Hoffa all the way to the Hoffa hit contains some mesmerizing acting, such as De Niro's immediate reaction at being told he will have to kill his best friend, when he leans back and holds back his tears. His expression was so good when he was in the plane on the way to Detroit that during the editing stage, Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker decided to hold the shot longer, just because of how good he was. And the icing on the cake is when he sits in his bedroom and calls the widow of Hoffa, in which you can see 1,001 expressions going through his mind as he almost breaks down with grief. In third place, I've gone for Mean Streets, the role which put De Niro on the map. In a movie where he was only a supporting character, in a time where guys like Scorsese and Harvey Keitel were still perfecting their craft, when they still came across as rough around the edges, De Niro completely overshadowed everyone else and everything else in this film. He hijacks the movie with his massive grinning smile. I mean, literally the proof of De Niro's greatness in this film is his subsequent partnership with Scorsese, and they're still working together today. And it's not like De Niro was rough in his early days and would later get into his groove. Think, only a year later, he would win an Oscar for his role as Vito Corleone. It's the kind of role that Joe Pesci might play later on in Scorsese's career. a volatile, loose cannon, a childish liability, the cause of most of the trouble in the film, and yet it is possible to see why Charlie, Keitel's character, finds him endearing and can't bring himself to cut him loose. Again, it's all about the glue and the glitter argument, and De Niro is as sparkly as can be in this film. In second place, I've gone for Taxi Driver. There was only ever going to be 2 films at the top, weren't there? And in a way, this is my number 1 pick. I would have put Taxi Driver at first place, had it not been for the physical requirements of the film at number 1. Travis Bickle, I think, is one of the most fascinating characters in film history. It's one of those where I have forgotten I'm watching an actor read some lines of a script in front of a camera, because he feels like such a real person. There's so much to him, so much depth to his character, as a result of the direction of Martin Scorsese, the script of Paul Schrader, and of course, the magnificent portrayal by Robert De Niro. It's the most iconic De Niro role, the one that made De Niro synonymous with playing disturbed individuals. His vacant look throughout the film shows he's distant to everyone around him, far removed from society, and has long since retreated into the chasm of his own skull where, much like Rupert Pupkin, and much like us all to an extent, he is the hero in his own story. As Travis, De Niro gets under your skin, and you can't even work out why that is. He's able to convey minute details of Travis's feelings and fleeting thoughts, and he captures his every reflections. Look at me, I'm talking as if Travis is a real person, but that's just the way it feels thanks to De Niro's amazing performance. For my number 1 pick, I've gone for his Oscar-winning portrayal of the unhinged, raving maniac, Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. Even putting the extraordinary physical preparations for the role to a side, such as a then record weight gain for a movie role, and actually taking part in real boxing fights, being so good that the real LaMotta felt he had what it took to be a real boxer, De Niro is magnificent at capturing LaMotta's rages and insecurities. Even though we can see that he's paranoid and there's nothing to much of the accusations he fires at those around him, because of the way Scorsese plays certain scenes and the way De Niro delivers, like the "you fuck my wife" scene, we are able to fully emphasize with LaMotta's viewpoint. And that in itself is a remarkable feat, in that somehow they've managed to get us to empathize with a horrible, toxic personality. De Niro goes to some dark places in this film. Who can forget that harrowing scene of him in the jail cell? And at the same time, he's tightly wounded throughout the film, ready to explode at seconds' notice. And because of this, he's often scarier here than he is playing one of his roles as a gangster or killer. It's De Niro at his most intense, playing his most contradictory, self-loathing, self-destructive, and angry character. He explores deep into the insecure male psyche. He's fighting with everyone, his brother, his wife, and more than anyone, he's fighting with himself. The self, the ego, the consciousness. He's a bubbling cauldron of jealousy, self-hatred, and rage. De Niro gives a performance where it feels like the man is imprisoned by his own psyche. A man whose only means of communication, his rage, the thing that gives him so much success in the ring, is the same thing that destroys his life outside of it. So there you have it. My rankings of Robert De Niro's performances in Martin Scorsese's movies. Here's hoping he knocks it out of the park again in Scorsese's upcoming Killers of the Flower Moon. What do you think of my rankings? Agree? Disagree? What does your own list look like? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.